Joe, how you doing? Glad you came through. Welcome to the Sugar Love Show, where we have fun. Grab your friends and dance along. Join the party all night long. Love you for a ride. Buckle up, hold tight. We're gonna ignite. Shake your body to the rhythm. Let the music take control. When the beat drops, you better lose control. We're gonna make memories, create an unforgettable night. Forget about your worries. Let's spread the love and shine so bright. Welcome to the Sugar Love Show, where the energy is high. We're gonna dance the morning light. Feel the music.
I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name. Check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change. Possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy, think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen. I won't let them fester me, I know most are festering. Negativity is a plague for the mentally weak. No mercy, all I got is working. Never stop searching, never quite so thirsty. I'm toxic and psychotic, with this logic, you can't stop it. It's been chronic since I was a boy, so neurotic and chaotic.
Built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna eat 'em. Make mistakes real fast, then you learn how to beat 'em. If you take off the cast, you can see all the healing. If the pain's in the past, move on from the grave and put your foot on the gas. No, never stop competing, yeah.
I've been doing this, I'm on it. I just wanna be iconic. Sipping on a gin and tonic, got me going off when I'm on this topic, yeah. If I ever play, I want it. You know that I'm always honest. Stay away from those who are toxic. Keep them out your face, no way, you don't want it, yeah.
Don't try to drain my energy, the enemy is everywhere.
freedom is priceless, spread just like a virus, living in a crisis. Do you feel courageous? Do you seek greatness? Trust me, you can take it. Go on and take your aim. Yeah.
Built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna eat 'em. Make mistakes real fast, then you learn how to beat 'em. If you take off the gas, you can see all the healing. If the pain's in the past, move on from the grave and put your foot on the gas. No, never stop competing. Yeah.
Hey, y'all. Now, today, hey, Boss Jackie. Hey, Lakeisha. Hey, Spice. Johnny! What's up, my brother? Hey, Larry. What's up, Larry? Now, today, we're going to talk about the disconnect, right? And the disconnect will not be about the men and women. The disconnect, even though that does play a part in some of the crap we got going on now, but it's the disconnect between us as Black people. What is the disconnection and why did we disconnect? Right? One side think they're better than the other. Right? One side think they're better than the other, and one side forgot. Right? This is all about forget about us, and let's think that we're better. So it's about status, high class, low class, right? And that is the biggest disconnect we have as people, the high class and the low class. And we forgot we are the same people. Hey, Angela, we forgot we are the same people. We forgot about each other, right? And I think I have always said this, right? But because of the disconnection, that have opened up the doors, that has opened up the doors of what we call today scammers. Right? A lot of scammers came out of that, right? A lot of scamming, a lot of people that was thirsty, a lot of people that who could have gave them some thirst, right? Now, we're going to start this video, right? He done changed up on his sister, but he still does excellent work, excellent work. I still like the old work that he was doing. I agree with that more. I still have some of the old work, but his new work is just as good, right? Right? His new work is just as good, right? So, the video credit goes to Brooklyn St. Michael. Brooklyn St. Michael, right? I've been watching this guy for a long time. Yes, he changed up, but now it says these blacks traded standards for status in the 1950s. See, this is why I tell you guys time and time again, it was only a certain amount of time where we had this traditional crap, right? But remember, traditional doesn't mean that we know it was traditional. That was the outlook they wanted people to see. We have no proof that no man never cheated on his wife. There's no proof there was no other babies that was made, right? There was no proof, but they put up a good front. So they don't think that they are part of the problem, right? They don't think they're part of the problem because they have this thing called not standard, status. They have this thing called status, right? And we're going to see, right? Let's go.
E. Franklin Frazier in his book right here called Black Bourgeoisie, which was published in 1957. And so this area of critique on this particular group of blacks, it took place in the field of education and in teaching. So what I want you to do is follow along right now so we can see how these blacks traded in standards for status. So here we go. So starting on page 71, it says this: the missionaries from New England who founded the first schools for Negroes in the South left the imprint of their Puritan background upon Negro education. So these missionaries were a Christian Protestant group who helped establish the Negro education in the South after the emancipation. Although by
now, as we see, right, again, they always come to you as an I'm your savior. I'm your savior. I come to help you. I'm the savior. Hey, let me help you out. This is how they come. I am the savior. I'm going to save you, people. Yes, I am going to save you. Right?
1830, Puritanism in New England had begun to decline. It was still a dominant force in the lives of people. For example, in 1830, employers in New England were able to oppose the reduction of the number of hours of labor to 10 hours on the ground that too much leisure time would encourage vice among workers. As the result of the influx of European immigrants and the Civil War, New England, and in fact the United States as a whole, began to discard its prudery and puritanical morals. But the missionaries who came from New England represented the native English stock and were imbued with the Puritan tradition. So New England as a whole was already starting to creep away from these old traditional values. But this particular stock who went to the South, they were still immersed in that same traditional type of culture. As a consequence, they maintained a strict surveillance over the conduct of their Negro students in order to stamp out any tendency towards frivolous or immoral conduct. Because of the system of social control in these missionary schools, it was not difficult to maintain an atmosphere of piety. All the students were required to attend chapel once or twice a day. At the chapel exercises, they heard the reading of the Bible, which was followed by a prayer. Generally, some lesson was drawn from the scripture in order to show its application to their lives. Visiting speakers who appeared at the chapel exercises were selected with a view to seeing that their talk would fit into the spirit of the school. As a result, representatives of the Young Men's Christian Association or Young Women's Christian Association and similar organizations proved to be the most eligible speakers for such occasions. The pious teachings at chapel exercises were reinforced in weekly prayer meetings.
So, as you see, right, as you guys can see, they use religion, right? They use this religion. You join, you can come on to our school, right? And this is where the disconnection starts, right? This is not exactly the pinpoint time, but this is one of the major things where we started to disconnect as our people, right? And remember, we have 52 states. So this is not all the states. This is not all the Black people. This is just some in New England, right? This is where it starts to where we are today. Why are we still disconnected today? And where they think they are not part of the problem. right? They want to blame the sexy reds, but they don't know they are part of the problem.
The whole emphasis of these various meetings was to give the students a sentimental and moral as opposed to a rational and scientific outlook on life. Moral behavior meant that the students were not to dance, smoke, or play cards. In some schools, a concession was made to the desire on the part of the students to dance by permitting them to march on social occasions. But a strict surveillance was maintained in order to prevent any steps that would be surreptitious dancing. Surreptitious meaning doing it in secret. They didn't want them to secretly dance, so they kept a close eye on them. In such an environment of piety, it was natural that chapel services on Sunday were especially important and that the students should spend the day as quietly as possible, even refraining from light or frivolous conversation. Many industrial schools maintained an atmosphere as pious as the colleges. And when the Negroes themselves began to assume control of their schools, they tried to maintain the same tradition of piety. At Tuskegee Institute, which was always under the control of Negroes, education of the black bourgeoisie, the tradition of piety was almost as strong as Hampton Institute, which was under white control. So it looks like they had a system in place to direct the character of the Negro in a particular direction, right? And they were using the Bible and using some of the stories in there to help do this, right? And so they were trying to eliminate some of the habits that the Negro had picked up and passed along that came from the slave culture. So let's continue going. At the chapel exercises, moral conduct, which included refraining from playing cards.
Now, again, this would be one of the starts of we want better, but it's still, we sold out, right? We sold out. This would be the beginning of we sold out, right? We sold out. But this is also, we want to be educated, right? We are going to be educated. You know, we want to, this is where a lot of that saying come today. They're looking at us, and we traded us as a people to think that they care for our standards, right? But we thought that we had standards and we were more like them and controlled ourselves like them in their mind as in today. Remember, there's nothing new under the sun. So as in today, we still think in our mind, if we're so educated and so much better, they will look and treat us better, right? But that was really to learn their education. But we will carry it on. So they didn't want you to play cards and all this other. We're going to take it slow. We are going to take it slow, right? This is where, till today, where the disconnect is at. And some people think, everybody think they're not of the problem, and they don't truly understand the role and the part that they play. They were smart, but they wasn't smart enough, because some things they forgot when they became the bourgeoisie, right? The bourgeoisie. Now let's go.
Was stressed by Washington, who said, and this right here is talking about Booker T. Washington, who said, do not play cards. Now, what's wrong with playing cards, you might ask? Let's see how they viewed it. Playing cards, you will insist, is no more harmful than playing dominoes or croquet. But it is a fact undeniable that playing cards leads to something more harmful than either of the games I have just mentioned. And just to add, the Negroes picked up the card playing and dominoes from the Southern rednecks. The ancestors that came from West Africa, they didn't bring dominoes over to the Americas with them. The Southerners brought that over with them coming from Europe, right? Where they were said to have played those games over extended periods of time, along with getting drunk and rolling the dice, right? You can read this in Dr. Grady McWhiney's account in the book called The Cracker Culture on page 132, right? And so let's continue going. Card playing has a history and is the experience of men who understand crime, who understand civilization in all its grades, that card playing has been the source of any number of crimes. it leads to late hours, bad
Mhm.
company, a
Mhm.
betting proclivity,
Mhm.
and finally, it leads to the using of other people's money. So
Mhm.
card playing was
Gambling.
linked to criminal activity in the minds of the people at that
Mhm.
time, and also being caught up in debt, which was why they wanted the Negroes to relinquish their interest in that type of activity.
Because again, well, we know about the gambling part, right? But it also, if you're playing cards, it gives you an idle mind, right? So if you have an idle mind and you're playing cards, even if it's not violence or something, it means you're not doing something with your time, right? They want you to be productive, right? I want you to be productive. If you're playing cards, you're wasting time. You're wasting being productive, right? Well, let's go.
Let's keep going. In the pious atmosphere of this missionary school, the students were found to be listless and without any desire to learn, which makes sense because they came from a culture or they inherited a mindset that did not value education, right? Let's continue. There was some resentment among the students against the system of control, but on the whole, they submitted silently for fear of losing an opportunity to secure an education. They seemed to suffer from an unjustified fear that if they did not exhibit a spirit of cheerful gratitude towards the white Northerners, they would be expelled from the school. The only concession that was made to the Negroes' culture was that the students were required to sing spirituals for the white visitors. But
My, ain't that something?
though the school was saturated with religious feeling, the required religious activities were designed to wean them from the religious emotionalism of the Negro. Now, what's the religious emotionalism of the Negro? It's the hooting and hollering that many of the black churches still do today. That intense emotionalism to religion that was developed by the blacks during slavery as a means to cope with their environment and to cope with the circumstance that they found themselves in. So these schools were designed to get them to relax a little bit, right? To chill out and not be so emotional when they talk about God or when they pick up a Bible or something, right?
Now, they, again, they set our people up as you see. They're setting our people up as they do today, right? They want you to forget, right? But that is something that is in us. So they use our people as usual and put it under education and standards in class, right? But you're coming from a people of it's in you, right? It is in you. And they forgot that. Like a lot, they make it seem like it only happened to one set. It happened to you and your forefathers also, right? So now they have trained these group of black people to forget education. We will invite you in our world. We're going to invite you in our world. Hello, man fishing. We're going to invite you into our world, right? But these are the things that you have to do. Not mind you, is that to say everybody was all Caucasians were on the right foot? No, right? Were all of them doing good? No. But it was a certain class, just like we got a certain class. They had a certain class. And if you want to get into this class with us, you have to make them forget all the things that happened to them. And as today, when we go at each other, when we say, oh, nobody's keeping you back, you could do whatever you want to do in life. Like it, but in all reality, yes, right? In all reality, yes. But again, in order to get to them, right? To be with them, there were still some sacrifices here, right? There are still some you had to let go. Like you got people will argue up and down. I don't know why we have these conversations, right? There's no need to keep having these same conversations. For you to come to the upper class, you now have to act upper class. You have to leave all the things that happen to you and your people alone, and we will give you education. We will put you above them, right? And then you now, as today, you now have to be what you call what they will call the elite, right? So we're just going to call it elite. May not be the same elite as it is today, but it's still the elite, right? So your job is to go dig out more people, your black people, and make them elite, right? So that's why they call it the bourgeoisie, right? But sometimes you're too smart for your own britches. You're too smart for your own britches. Because when you forget about where you come from, it's not the fact that they'll bite you on your ass. They forgot to do something. They forgot to do something. And then somebody else did it, right? They forgot. They wanted you to forget something that is in you, right? And it was so many hundreds of years. You're going to beat our asses, right? You're going to whip us, stripe us down, all the things you have done to us as a people. There's no way we're going to forget overnight. So they put you, these Puritans come on up over here from New England. Hey, in the name of Jesus, yes. Right? This is what you're going to do. You're going to learn this way, and you are now what you call the black elite or the bourgeoisie, right? These are the people who we claim they are the excellence. They are of excellence, right? Just like today, the people of excellence. But again, they forgot something. They forgot something. They was too smart for their own britches, and they forgot something, right? Let's go.
Let's continue. The graduates of this college would teach, as this European rightly observes, what little they knew to real Negroes whom they did not know. In the pious environment of the colleges, the students were taught to be industrious and thrifty, wasting neither time nor money. So they were taught to work hard, save money, and not to sit around and become idle, right? And to do idle things. The regimen and discipline of these colleges were designed to teach these ideals. Moreover, because of the close association of teachers and students, the students learn by the example set by their teachers as well as by precept. Also, the literary training given by these schools was represented in the habits, enjoyments, and ideals of their teachers. In the industrial schools, the ideal of thrift was tied up with labor. Booker T. Washington has regarded the teaching of the dignity of labor to be one of the primary tasks of industrial education. There was one point on which the proponents of industrial education and higher education were agreed. The Negro student should strive to be respectable. And isn't becoming a respectable person something that every human should strive for? I think so. Here we go. As we have seen, Du Bois has said that the best of the race should guide the mass away from the worst. And that
Now, you see that, right? Now he says, strive. Black folks, now these they words. You have to strive to be respectable, right? You wasn't born respectable. You had to cross your ass over to strive to be respectable, right? But remember, this is where the disconnect comes from. Has nothing to do with men and women. This is us as a people, right? As we have seen, Du Bois has said that the best of the race should guide the mass away from the worst, right? Who will be the worst, right? We're talking about in the 1800s, close to the 1900s. Who would be the worst? What are they talking about? The worst, right? This is the separation. This is how they started to separate us, guys. This is how, that's why I said it's not a nothing nobody could say to me I really care about, right? Because we all the same. I don't care how you may act, right? And this is how a lot of people get taken down. We'll get into that later, right? We'll get back into that later. But again, the mass away from the worst. That's what they say.
As we have seen, Du Bois has said that the best of the race should guide the mass away from the worst. And that's referring to Du Bois's idea of the talented 10th, where he believed that the top 10% of the Negroes should be developed as much as possible. And then from there, they should be a beacon of light to the masses of the Negroes, right? To help them lift themselves up. Let's continue. And Booker T. Washington, who always counseled his students against the shiftlessness and rude behavior of Negroes, told them in one Sunday evening talk, there is a beauty, a transformation, as it were, a regeneration that takes place in the physical makeup of a young man or young woman who gets into the habit of living on the high side of life rather than on the low side. And the low side is talking about the pits, which is filled with struggle, crime, misfortune, and a miserable life. And the high side would be the opposite of that, right? Let's continue. Negro students were supposed to be differentiated in their morals as well as in their manners from the Negro masses, which tells you that the Negro masses, or the great majority of the Negroes at that time, were known to have substandard morals, and they wanted their students to be different from them, right? In other words, they had different expectations for these students. Let's continue. For that reason, they were not to indulge in the religious emotionalism of the black masses. In some cases, the core of the student bodies of the schools founded by the missionaries consisted of the children of Negroes, predominantly mulattoes, who were free before the Civil War. It was not difficult to get the children of this favorite group, which was differentiated from the ex-slaves by education and general culture.
Now, it was not difficult to get the children of this here favorite group. Again, light skin against dark skin. Light skin against dark skin, right? Which was differentiated from the ex-slaves by education and general culture to conform their standards. See the key word of respectability, right? Of respectability, right? They still want to be respected. They still want to be respected by their masters, right? They still think in their minds, if I do all of this, I will be respected. But they were so smart, they missed the mark, right? They missed the mark. But we're going to let this play. We're going to talk about this because it's a part 2 to this video, not this video, but to that video. And then you're going to see exactly where I'm coming from, right? Now let's go. Because I'm so sick of that question. Well, how do we get together as black people? How do we do this as black people? Well, we need to do this. No. You should have did that shit back then. You should have did all that back then. And it wouldn't be where we at now. We would not be where we at now. I will keep explaining where I'm coming from. Right? But again, keyword standards of respectability, which we keep saying today, right? Look at them girls. Look at that. Look at this. Look at this. Now, these are the same people who forgot we was sexualized, over-sexualized as slaves. These are the same people who forgot we were baked as slaves, right? We are the same people who forgotten that most of these kids that were in Lotto were not put here by love, right? That they was not put here by love, right? Right? We're going to carry on.
Culture to conform to the standards of respectability. You see that? These were students who did not inherit the slave culture, the slave mentality, and the slave mannerisms, which would be, to me,
incorrect. It would not, it would be totally incorrect. But that's what they say, right? They may have not been in it. You're gonna catch it. You're gonna understand. But it's still your history, right? It's still your history. And they wanted you to forget about your history. They did not teach you. See, this is where they stopped teaching us about our history. And I'm not talking about the history containing being Africa. I'm talking about our history here. This is why we can never stop teaching about our history here. Because even back then, they wanted you to conform and call yourself respectable. If you notice, depending on your age, they always talk about you got to be a respectable girl and respectable guy and be respected, right? And I think I did a show when we looked up the word respect, right? Because technically, the word exists but doesn't exist. If you understand what I mean, because I listen to words, right? What does the word respect mean? What does the word respect mean? I will wait. Y'all can drop it in the chat. What does the word respect mean? I'll wait. What does the word respect mean?
A world of a difference, because that means that they did not have to try as hard to conform to the school standards and expectations, which was probably because they most likely had already been raised with many of those standards. Here we go. But where the school drew their student bodies more largely from the masses of freedmen, this is talking about the descendants of the newly freed slaves, a strict discipline.
Key word, newly freed slaves. But they were still slaves, damn it. But let's go.
Discipline was necessary in order to inculcate and maintain standards of respectability.
Standards of, again, key word, respectability.
That's the countercurrent of energy that's working against them, because they inherited a culture that was completely opposite of what the school was trying to teach them and the values that the school had for them. And so the staff had to work much harder and they had to use much more energy to get them up to that standard. First, students were taught to speak English correctly and thus avoid the ungrammatical speech and dialect of the Negro masses. They were
Don't we do that today? Don't we call people dumb and stupid because they don't speak proper, right? And we forgot that people are not dumb, they're not stupid, and they're not uneducated. You taught them to speak correct English, which is okay, but that doesn't make you better because they haven't gotten the education yet. They speak the way they speak, right? This is how they speak in their home. This is how people speak, right? But these are some of the things we have picked up on each other. And this is how we exploit one another. But again, they were too smart to their own britches that they missed the mark. Let's go.
Expected to be courteous, speak softly, and never exhibit the spontaneous boisterousness of the ordinary Negroes. In other words, they were expected to become a new person, which everyone has the ability to do because all humans possess the same characteristics. It's just that certain groups, they express certain characteristics more than the other group does, right? But anyone could learn to be any characteristic. They can learn to be courteous, right? Excuse me. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate your help, right? And anyone can learn to be rude, right? Shut up. You're stupid. You're dumb. Each characteristic is in every human to some degree. And like I said, some express them more than others. Let's continue. When they walk down the street, people should be able to say, there goes a ex-college girl or boy. So they wanted to create a clear distinction between the Negroes that went to these types of schools and the Negro masses, right? The other ones out there. And this was done by developing the character, changing the behavior, and also changing the mannerisms. To be detected in immoral sex behavior, especially if the guilty person was a woman, meant expulsion from the school, right? They're not trying to get this behavior pattern to infiltrate and infect the environment that they have set up. So if you got caught doing it, you're out of here. Let's continue. The woman meant expulsion.
Again, look at the key words in here, right? You keep saying respectability. You keep saying the word respect. You keep saying we have to act like a certain behavior. But right here, it will tell you, again, you can't say women did not have education because they were part of the bourgeoisie and they did go to college. So all that traditional wife, as we see in 1800s, women were going to college and they were working. But listen to the key word: to be detected in immoral ex behavior, especially if the guilty person was a woman. She got kicked out. Why didn't the man get kicked out, right? So again, these are the lies that people, this is how y'all people who think y'all better than others, this is how y'all get exposed. This is how y'all get exposed. Because soon as you start thinking you better than somebody else, they expose your ass. Because obviously cheating never stopped, right? How respectable you are and how do you want to have immoral behavior if cheating never stopped? They were cheating too. And as usual, the woman got kicked out. So they sort of kind of dealt with the man, right? They dealt with the man. Your homie, don't do that no more. We're going to give you another chance. But woman, get out, right? Get out, woman. Well, let's go. Exactly, Angela.
Expulsion from the school, right? They're not trying to get this behavior pattern to infiltrate and infect the environment that they have set up. So if you got caught doing it, you're out of here. Let's continue. It was only the common Negroes who engaged in premarital and unconventional sex relations. That behavior was supposed to be only something that a typical Negro was supposed to be involved in, not something that a person who went to these schools was involved in, right? Different expectation, different culture that they're trying to develop. Let's continue. The graduates of those schools were to go forth and become the heads of conventional families, right? So these were some of the expectations that the Northern missionaries and other cultured Negroes had for these selected groups of Negroes that they were training in these colleges. Now, what I want you to watch is what happened next when the times changed, right?
Hold up. Before we get to the chimes that's changing, remember, 1800s, women are in school. In 1800s, they are in college. In 1800s, they were not traditional wife, right? After they finished school and education and all that stuff, then they had this quote unquote traditional household, right? So they say. But was it everybody? No, right? No, it was not everybody. It was just a group of these elite people who said, hey, I'm going to act just like you. We're going to conform. We're going to be black, how they say, black excellent. which again, nothing is wrong with this. Nothing is wrong with none of that. That is a beautiful thing. There's if you could get your education, get your education, right? But remember, this is in the beginning. This is 1800. This is in the beginning, right? And right around here, you see where the separation is at, right? You see how they started to disconnect us. This is the plan to disconnect us. And this is why we're still disconnected today. Well, let's carry on.
This is very important, a very important piece of Black American history for you to be familiar with. So here we go. It says this: the mass migration of Negroes from the South during and following the First World War affected the education of the Negro as it did other phases of his life. Because as some of us know, the vast majority of the Negroes, they still lived in the South in the early 1900s. In the book, he talks about 90% still lived in the South. And most of these Negroes, they were the agents or the carriers of the slave culture. And as the opportunities became more available for them to go into other parts of the country, they began to migrate, right? And obviously, they took that mentality along with them. And so it says this: when hundreds of thousands of Negroes who had migrated to northern cities gained access to the same education as whites, the controversy concerning the relative merits of industrial education and higher education lost its significance. And so from here, let's jump over a couple pages to get more insight into what happened. In 1926, the first Negro was elected president of Howard University. The Atlanta University system was set up under a Negro president. Negro students, as well as teachers, were demanding that their schools be placed under Negro administrators. The election of Negro administrators and Negro colleges represented, to a certain extent, a revolt against missionary education. But the transformation which was occurring indicated something more fundamental than a change from white to Negro administration. The entire orientation and aim of higher education of Negroes was changing. It was natural that as a result of the revolt against missionary education, these institutions would lose much of their piety. So here we go. Dancing, card playing, and smoking ceased to be deadly sins, and requirements concerning chapel attendance were modified, right? Only in the smaller and isolated schools did the tradition of piety linger. Now, why did it linger there? Because they were isolated and didn't have that much of an influence from these other folks coming in. There was less talk about thrift and the dignity of labor. Respectability became less a question of morals and manners and more a matter of the external marks of a high standard of living. You see that? The culture shifted from the inner work and the development of morals and standards to that of a focus more on the outer appearance and the outer importances, and especially material possessions. Watch this. As the children of the Negro masses have flooded the colleges, it was inevitable that the traditional standards of morals and manners would have to give way. Now remember, the Negro masses were the carriers of the slave culture. And since it was way more of them, they carried a way larger mass of energy with them that shifted the culture, right? If it was like 10 or 20 of them, then their influence would most likely not have been so great. But it was hundreds of thousands of them, as Dr. Franklin states, right? Now let's see what they brought with them. These children of the peasants had no particular interest in learning to speak correctly, nor in cultivating the gentility of their predecessors who had come under the strict discipline of northern missionaries. The blacks with the slave culture, they had no desire to learn English properly, nor to change their values. And what's worse than trying to get people to do something that they don't truly want to do? Let's continue. Many of them, having come from a background of disorganized family life, were strangers to the traditional puritanical morality of these schools.
Now, as you see, right? As you see, now the Southerners is coming down. They are just getting free. And free doesn't mean you were still enslaved. That means you're starting to migrate, right? that means you are starting to migrate. So some of them were still on those plantations. Some of them never left boss, right? Because where did they have to go, right? And at that point in time, they're working for the boss. They ain't getting paid, right? But they had no. That's like they saying you free. We're in a big old country I've never seen before ever, right? It's like I've been in one spot all this time. I don't know what the east, west, north, I don't know nothing, right? Some took a chance, some left, right? Some, depending on how many children you have, could not leave just like that, right? You can't leave. Some of them had a bunch of babies. Some had 10 kids, 11 kids, 12 kids. It was not easy to pick up all them kids. Then on that ride, you now have to feed these kids. You don't have it. So some stayed. So now, here we go with the part where you think that you are better than others, right? So now they still want an education too. It's just that you were there before them, right? You got there before them, right? So now you think that you're better and you're saying what they don't want to do. Mistake. That was one of the biggest mistakes they had did, which continues today. This mistake right there, what he's saying, this is the biggest mistake we could have ever done. And it still plagues us today. But that was done by design, right? It was done by design.
A chance for a college education represented for them the chief means of achieving social and economic mobility. The colleges had to make concessions to their poor educational and social backgrounds.
Poor educational backgrounds. Like they all came there smart. No, remember in the beginning, they had to learn too. They had to learn the Bible. They had to read the quotes of the Bible. Everything they couldn't do nothing but study, work, save money. Again, they forgot they had to learn too. They came there just like them. But for some reason, they forgot. But when the parents came on over there and said, hey, come learn from us. You wasn't educated as you were neither. But now you want to look down on the others, right? So now you got the Southerners coming on down there with their Southern accents and their Southern behavior and their Southern lifestyle, the way they cook, the way they eat. And they also brought in the tradition of what? Surviving, right? They brought in their tradition of surviving, right? And the things that they was doing while they were surviving, right? Like from working 12 hours, 13 hours, 16 hours, 17 hours a day, they brought in the things they used to do to entertain themselves, right? To make themselves happy or to get away from that long day sitting in that sun, like working in the cotton fields, this field, that field, right? From the cleaning the houses. They brought all of that with them, right? So now people who was doing these things now is migrating to people now that is uppity, right? They call uppity, which is not wrong with either one. Nothing is wrong with either one because they both represent us. But they put that line there so we could be what? Disconnected. Again, biggest mistake we could have ever made, right? They drop the ball. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to get to how they dropped the ball. Let's carry on.
But the children of the Negro masses were not primarily responsible for the change in the character of the Negro college. The outlook and aims of the colleges changed in response to the aspiration and values of the second generation of Negro college students and their Negro teachers who were imbued with the middle class values. So the second generation of the Negro masses and their teachers are who played the biggest part in the change of the college culture, right? They had the middle class values, which we talked about. It consisted of more material things. And on top of that, they still had the slave values, right? Which they had inherited. And when you put those two together and blended it, this was the result that came. Unlike the missionary teachers, the present teachers have little interest in making men, but are concerned primarily with teaching as a source of income, which will enable them to maintain middle class standards and participate in Negro society.
They wanted high class, right? They just said, "That's I'll take this C, right? I'm not a D student, right? I'm gonna take this C and be all right." But they still forgot something, right? They still forgot about their people. Keep telling you what they're bringing. You forgot what they were bringing to you, right? You forgot what they brought to you. You were too high class that you missed the mark because you're too high class, right? You didn't like the middle class and you damn sure ain't like the low class, right? But again, you forgot what landed in your lap. You forgot. Let's go.
were all about money, materialism, and status. According to Dr. Fraser, they didn't care about making men for the future. They cared about themselves and keeping a certain status. Let's continue. It appears that the majority of them have no knowledge of books, nor any real love of literature. And why is that? Because the slaves were cut off from knowledge. It was illegal for them to read. So they developed a slave culture, which did not include a high value placed on books. And they
Wait. They didn't develop that. Again, they missing the mark. They did not develop it. The books that they are reading, they're not connected to the books, right? Right. I'm black and stuff. I just whipped my behind all these years, tore us up. They didn't get a chance to even, again, never had a chance to get that out of their system, right? So you're thinking, so instead of helping them get that out of their system, but you're really not, because you're becoming high class. So you want them to forget it. There's no way that I'm just coming to you and now I'm supposed to forget what happened to my mama, right? I'm supposed to forget what happened to my grandmama, right? Just because you did, that doesn't mean I didn't, right? And them books that you want me to read is not about me. It's not about me. It's not about my people. I'm reading literature about who, right? Who am I reading? What am I learning in your books, right? What am I learning? You want me to learn about these same people who was whipping on me? You want me to learn about them? You want me to learn about the people who enslaved me? So that's going to make me like really smart. I have to now learn about them. I done seen enough of these damn people. Right? I done seen enough. I've learned enough about them. Now you want me to read their books, right? I'm gonna read their books and become high class. And again, they stop teaching men how to be men, right? But as you see, they were still cheating, right? And they were cheating in the church. They were still cheating. Only the woman got kicked out. So how good are you? How good were you? Right? So again, the church, they're taking the church out of the church. Out of the college. And now it's just a regular old college, right? That will probably be the beginning of the HBCUs, right? That would probably be the beginning. If my timing is off, let me know.
Passed on that culture to their generations. Let's continue. Today, many of the teachers of English and literature never read a book as a source of pleasure or recreation. Now, remember, he said that they were doing this job just to get paid and also to maintain a certain status. So they were just going through the motion and they didn't really have a passion for education and for learning. Let's continue. They go through a dull routine of teaching literature or other college subjects to listless students, many of whom cannot read. The second and third generation of Negro college students are as listless as the children of peasants. Again, listless meaning
Now we peasants.
unenthusiastic and unmotivated. And he says the second and the third generation were just as listless as the children of the peasants. Let's continue. The former, meaning the second generation, are interested primarily in the activities of Greek letter society and social life, while the latter, meaning the third generation, are concerned with gaining social acceptance by the former. Both are less concerned with the history or the understanding of the world about them than with their appearance at the next social affair. The girl with a peasant or working class background may be irritated by her mother's inability to buy an expensive party dress.
Now, as you see, the girl with the peasant, right? Now she got to be a peasant, right? Or working class background. Again, grandma, grandpa, they worked. I mean, grandma, great grandma, they worked. They worked. They didn't come out of slavery to be now a slave again in a household for no man. It was always about excellence. It was always about education, right? It was always about that. Don't let these people on these videos tell you that it wasn't. It was.
But what can be expected when the dean of women has instructed her to tell her mother that she must have the dress at any sacrifice? So teachers and students alike are agreed that money and conspicuous consumption are more important than knowledge or the enjoyment of books and art and music. There's an example of the pressure to conform. They had created an environment where the herd mentality says that people should place art and music. There's
Now look. So teachers and students alike are agreed that money, well, you would think they came from nothing, right? You would think that they came from nothing. I didn't come to college not to make money, right? Well, you would think, I've never had a dress before, right? I've never had a dress. I never looked pretty. I was just picking cotton. I've made it to college, right? And then it goes to consumption are more important than knowledge. Well, actually, it wasn't more important than knowledge. It's just that, again, we came with something. He keeps saying what we came with. And this is where the ball drops, right? And the enjoyment of books. Again, what are these books you want me to read, right? What are these books? I just came from off the daggone plantation. Now you want me to read their books. You want me to learn about France and all these different places around the world. Like, I'm going to not remember what they just did to my mama, my grandmama, and great grandmama, and grandfathers. So you want me to forget what they did to this was not that long ago, right? Then they say arts and music. What art are you talking about? Your art is not our art. What art are you talking about? Just done came from down south. And the key word here is music. I left that there so you can see where the ball dropped. This is where the ball drops. And this right here, in this statement, right here is the same problem we have today. That statement, if you get where I'm coming from, this is where our high class people wasn't smart as they thought they was. They wasn't smart as they thought they was. You tried to change us to be like them. But the key words here is money. You hear the key word? Money, books, art, music. Money, books, art, and music. Them are the key words that they were so mad about. So mad. Right? Now, let's get to the dropping of the ball, right? The dropping of the ball. I tell you time and time again, you don't have to listen to me. I keep telling you, what's first shall be last. What is last shall be first. Be very careful when you are first, because what is first should be last, and what is last shall be first, right? Because, again, you were so smart, you wasn't that smart. Certain things, high class people, certain things they did not teach you. They didn't teach you, and they chose not to teach you, right? Certain things in them colleges, they didn't teach you. And why would that be? Why would that certain things they forgot to teach you, done by design? You wanted us to be like them, right? You wanted us to be high class, respectable. You wanted when we walked the street, they seen you as, hey, these are high class black folks. Then them peasants down there. But you outsmarted yourself. Because when you deal with these people, they don't change. You're going to change. They don't change. And when they came over there, they brought something with them that they did not teach you in school. Miss high class folks. And then I'll get to some of the problems that we're still suffering from that today. Let's go.
The entertainers from the lowest rung of the ladder came to be the most influential members to the black community. Why are they there, and what caused them to get to that spot? The explanation comes from professor and sociologist Dr. E. Fraser Franklin in his 1957 book titled Black Bourgeoisie. And as we go through this explanation, I want you to listen very carefully, because what we're going to go on is a journey. And in this journey, we're going to deal with some backstory on Black American culture. And all this is going to lead us to our final destination of answering this question. But I need you to go through the full journey in order to get the understanding. And so once you understand this history, then it'll no longer be a mystery. And so let's go in here to page 113, where it says this: there have been only two really vital cultural traditions in the social history of the Negro in the United States. One being the genteel tradition of the small group of mulattoes who assimilated the morals and manners of the slave-holding aristocracy. So the first of the two notable black traditions was the gentile tradition, which placed high value on conventional family life, sexual purity, manners, education, and so forth. And this tradition was
No. You close. You close, Angela. But no, that part is true. That part is true. They stick together and work as a group to better their people. But you still close. You still close. But I gave you all the key words. I gave you all the key words. I stopped it and I gave you guys all the key words, right? But technically, yes, what you're saying. We're just going to add more to what you're saying, right? Because they made you go become high class black folk, right? Made you become high class black folk, right? Made you look down at your own folk, right? And then you said, oh, they're not interested in, they're only interested in money, right? Remember they said money, right? But they're not interested in books, art, music, and stuff like that, right? So they look down on them and like, I can't deal with these people. But when you was in that school, they knew what your Southerners, the slave folks, came with. Remember in the beginning, they wanted us to sing that. That's how they wanted us to sing, right? But because in the slave days, when we were slaves, we couldn't sing like that. They kicked us out the church, right? That's a key thing. They kicked us out the church and made us to make our own churches. That was one of the things they forgot. Not the church part, but why they kicked us out of the church. Angela laughing at me, right? Ha 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 ha, la la la, But we like, nah, what the F is that? But our high class people, they didn't teach us something. They kept telling you to be respectable, right? But the people in the school said, come on in. Why did them folks in the school say, come on in? Come on in. Why did they do that, right? And high class people like, what the hell? We's are not like them. We's are not like them. Let's go. Whoever's first should be last, should be first.
Learn from the slave-holding aristocracy or the nobility or the elite or the upper class slaveholders, right? And so this small group of mostly mulattoes took their culture from these people. And keep in mind that it says small because most of the blacks didn't have this culture. So this was one of the cultures. Let's continue. And the other, the culture of the black folk who gave the world the spirituals, which is the culture which developed as an adaptation to the slave.
Bam, bam, bam. You see that? You see that? The spirituals. That's why we were kicked out of the church, right? We were different. They knew we were different. But the high class folks, they wanted to disconnect themselves, right? And they forgot. They forgot one thing. Whenever y'all decide to put it in the chat, y'all gonna put it in the chat what they forgot, right? I ain't got none of my music over here. I'm gonna find something to play for y'all, right? I'm gonna find something. Yeah, yes, I is. I'll wait for y'all. We talk about America, right? We're talking about America. What did they forget, guys? They forgot a couple of things. So a couple of things you name, you're gonna be right.
Darkest of nights, when the tears start to flow, just remember my words, and I'll help you let go. When life gets too tough and you're feeling so low, turn those frowns upside down, let your spirits glow, till you feel all alone, like the world's crashing down. Well, don't you worry, babe, I'm here to turn it around. When your heart's heavy with pain and you're wearing a frown, break free from the chains, let happiness be found. When you wanna cry, smile, give it all you got, let the sun shine in. It's not as hard as you thought. When the world feels heavy, when it's all falling apart, put on a smile, my friend, and mend your broken heart. In the darkest of nights, when the tears start to flow, just remember my words, and I'll help you let go. When life gets too tough and you're feeling so low, turn those frowns.
Okay. They will never be 100% accepted to the Caucasian. No, 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 no. No, no, no. Let's keep this party going.
Slave environment. The first small group had the mind of the slaveholder, and the second mass group had the mind of the slave. Right? Let's continue. The gentile tradition, or the one that came from this aristocracy, flourished especially in such large communities of free mulattoes as those in Charleston, South Carolina, and New Orleans, Louisiana. It was maintained by those mulatto families that had acquired as part of their family traditions the patterns of behavior which were associated with the ideal of the Southern lady and
lady.
Southern gentleman.
Snow Bunny.
Some families took pride in the fact that a mulatto ancestor could not be distinguished in his physical appearance, dress, manners, and speech from his white half-brother. And they had these thoughts because they had bought into the idea that the traditional European features were superior to all the others. And so, in other words, they believed this to be true. Let's continue. As a rule, these families formed a closed circle from which were excluded all who could not boast of similar ancestry and did not conform to the same standards of morals and manners. They were exceedingly self-conscious of their culture, which consisted of the enjoyment of English and, in Louisiana, French classical literature and music. Sometimes they maintained literary societies in which they could enjoy and foster their culture. Many of these families migrated before the Civil War to the north, where they formed a small upper class that boasted of its gentile traditions. After the Civil War, the free mulatto class continued to hold itself aloof from the masses of freedmen. The Civil War ended in 1865, and by that time, the masses of blacks were no longer legally enslaved. And the Negroes with the gentile culture.
Now, all the slaves are free, right? All the slaves are free, right? Remember, I told you some of them started migrating, some of them went to these schools, right? So now we're going to develop what you call the lower class, right? Remember, we got the higher class, Then we got the middle class, right? Now all the slaves are free. Now the lower class now is being developed. Now you see where we get the higher class, middle class. Now all the slaves are free. Now we got what you call the lower class folks, right? But what's first should be last, what's last shall be first. Let's go.
They were trying to distance themselves from the masses because at that point they were culturally different people. Let's continue. In Louisiana, the hostility of some members of this class to the newly emancipated blacks was so great that they opposed giving political rights to the freedmen. But generally, the free mulatto class and its descendants assumed as far as possible positions of leadership among the Negro masses. They did not break down the traditional barriers to easy social intercourse and marriage. Even in their religious affiliations, the descendants of the free mulattoes held aloof from the Negro masses. They generally affiliated with the Episcopal, Congregational, Presbyterian, and Catholic churches, while the Negro masses, as we have seen, were affiliated with the Baptist and Methodist churches. The descendants of the free mulattoes became, after the Civil War, the core of a small class which undertook to maintain the American pattern of family life and conventional sex mores. So the offspring of this class looked to maintain the values that they had developed over the years. And this was one of the reasons that they kept a distance from the Negro masses.
So now we start to see where we get the traditional wife from, right? Traditional wife does not come from us, right? It does not come from the black man nor the black heritage, right? As regular black folks, we didn't have that traditional stuff, whereas neither did they, right? Technically, neither did they, because they were in school, they were educated, they had manners, right? But they still did all of this so they could be respectable, right? So you would not, quote unquote, look down on them, right? In their mind, like Angela said, they didn't realize they would never be 100% acceptable due to their skin and color, right? So they formed this high class black folks, or we call them uppity, they call them bourgeoisie. But now we all free, right? Remember, some of them left before they became the middle class. Now we're all free. So we like, damn, we don't spend too much time here. Let's go, right? So then that's when we started going north, south, east, and west, right? Let's say, hey, we got some jobs over here. You know, it's still a lot of racial stuff, but they thought they were better, right? So they say. So like today, you get that black wake-up call. But even till today, you got these uppity people that want to argue and look down on people. But times has changed. Let's see where now the high class now becomes the low class. Let's go. Till today, we still going back and forth with this same bullshit, including the traditional wife. We ain't did that. The men wasn't traditional, nor were the women. The traditional aspect comes from Caucasian people. They wanted to pattern the Caucasian woman and the Caucasian man. They was patterning them, trying to become them, right? So the woman, even though she had education, if she was Caucasian, she still had the right to stay home. The men went out there. The men were educated. They made the money. They took care of the children. They sort of kind of adapted that, right? But it's not our culture that these people keep arguing about. But again, if you educate yourself, like when we get to teaching here, we will see where everything fits in that, right? And how we got the same problem today. But again, I keep telling you guys, that verse is in the Bible where is first should be last, and last shall be first, right? And they dropped the effing ball. And because they decided to drop the ball, which was done by design, they are so smart, they don't understand your ass got played. Your ass got played. But let's carry on, right?
Because if they would have started mingling closely with the Negro masses, then their culture would have been compromised, especially being that there were more in numbers coming from the Negro masses who were the carriers of the slave mindset. Let's continue. In some small communities in the South, a single family with this social and cultural background would live in complete isolation rather than associate with the masses of Negroes. And why was that? For the reason we just went over. In their quiet, obscure lives, they expressed often their contempt for the black upstarts who, in their view, and often in fact, possessed neither morals nor manners. And again, this is why they attempted to separate themselves from the Negro masses, who had a very different set of morals and manners. And this is how people have always separated themselves before the European colonizer came along and started lumping people into these very large groups like black, white, Asian, and so forth, right? Groups that never initially agreed to be lumped in there together. Let's continue. The attitudes of those who came to terms with the successful members of the rising black masses was expressed by a young mulatto college student who was a descendant of a prominent free mulatto family. When asked how she felt when a big, ill-mannered Negro male student addressed her rudely and tossed her about, replied, "Well, since I've got to live with these N-words, I might as well act like one." So now at this point, we have members of the Negro masses who were attending school with other members from the mulatto class, and there was conflict. The mulatto class was stuck with the Negro mass, and we can see the frustration coming from this student here. And I'm pretty sure the Negro masses didn't like them either, right? Let's continue. On the whole, the tradition of the gentleman has ceased to have influence on either the manners or morals of the Negro community. The tradition they had stopped having influence on the Negro community, and later on we're going to find out exactly why, because it ties into the main topic of this video.
Exactly.
In the Negro colleges, it is futile for teachers to exhort.
Exactly, Angela. But they effed up. They effed up. Remember when I made that pause before? I showed you where they effed up at, right? But exactly, their job is still to do that today. Remember, there's nothing new under the sun. This is what we are continuing to do today. And this is why we ain't getting nowhere. This is exactly why we didn't get nowhere. Because why you looking for it to be respectable? The other people, like, nah, right? They came with that, I'm working for some, I'm working for some money. I've never looked good. I want to look good. I want to smell good. You understand what I'm saying? This is where our culture became to change. This is where we get that, oh, black folks spend all their money on clothes and stuff and don't want to save their money. This is where that comes from. But you cannot blame people who've never had nothing. And no, I don't want to dress like you. We got our own freaking style. Again, this is where the uppity, high class people effed up. This is where they effed up at. These education, like, let's carry on.
The students to behave like ladies and gentlemen. Futile means pointless. And why was it futile or pointless to get the Negro students to behave like ladies and gentlemen? Because at this point, the Negro masses had begun to take over. And the culture that they carried was nothing like the genteel culture that some of the mulatto class had. So from here, let's understand some of the background coming from the Negro masses and the culture that they had developed. The folk culture of the American Negro developed out of his experiences on American soil. Whatever element of African culture might have survived enslavement became merged with the Negro's experience in the new environment and lost their original meaning. The Negro was made in America, right from the
Right. So right then and there, when they say we have no culture, right? That's when we separated, right? We separated and became our own culture, right? And there's nothing wrong with creating your own culture because culture was created anyway, right? It's nothing but rules and regulations, right? A culture is this is how we do this. That we get together and we agree this is how we're going to do this. This is how we're going to do that. You can create culture every single day, right? How you live in your household will be how you want your culture to be. You can do it the way the group do it, or you can really do it the way you want to do it. And now that's passed down if they decide to want to keep whatever you started. Correct? Right? So now you see where whatever part of Africa we had, we let it go. We let it go. We've been beat, we've been used, we've been abused, and then all this time while we're being emasculated, right, baked, all the things that done happened to us, we found ways to, damn, I forgot the word. It start with a C. God dang it. But we found ways to cope, right? That's not the word I was looking for, but I'm gonna use that word. We found ways to cope. And in them times, as we're finding ways to cope, we started to develop our own culture. Somebody please go tell this to Busta Rhymes and the rest of them people, right? But we found ways, we found our own ways to do things, right? Because life has changed.
the language, the food, the thinking, the dancing, the songs, right? And even the physical makeup being a mixture of different people. And Dr. Frazier says that anything that survived that would have come from Africa was merged into this new environment and it lost its original meaning, right? So a new culture and a new people were created from this completely different experience. Let's continue. From the beginning, the Negro had to learn the language of his masters, and there was no chance to preserve African languages except in some isolated areas, as for example, along the coast of South Carolina and Georgia and the neighboring islands. The character which the Negro family acquired under the system of slavery was due to the exigencies of servitude rather than surviving African patterns of behavior. Exigencies meaning what was needed in a situation. So the character of the Negro family, which included the woman heading the house, was needed under the system of American slavery, and it was not something that was of African origin. In a situation where no legal recognition of family existed, the dominant position of the woman in the Negro family was due to the concession that had to be made to the needs of the children as well as to attachment of mothers to their offspring. Even in the matter of religion, there are no evidences of African survivals as in the West Indies and in Brazil.
You hear that?
Moreover, when the folk beliefs of the Negro are studied, it is difficult to disentangle the African elements from European folklore and practices and those folk beliefs which are a product of the American experience. The folk culture of the Negro was associated with the church, which has been the most important institution in the rural communities of the South. In fact, the community derived its name from the church. Most often, Baptist, or Methodist, and the location of the membership of a particular church defined the limits of the communal life. It has been in the church that the Negro has found a meaning for existence, and it was the church that enlisted his deepest loyalties. The church set up and defined the norms and moral conduct and provided the necessary discipline to enforce its rules and behavior.
Now, like I said, the part that them high class folks, right? What they forgot was the key thing is why they kicked us out the church, right? They forgot what made them kick us out their church, right? And the key word is spiritual. What we feel, right? What we feel. What happens when we get spiritual, right? Our singing is different. Our dancing is different, right? The way we clap our hands to the beat. Somebody tell that to Busta Rhymes also, right? Somebody get that memo to Busta Rhymes, right? The way we did everything, and even if we broke away from the church, it doesn't take away, as we see, the spiritual, right? So that was one of the key things they forgot, which the person who the church, the Puritans church, came on up in there, they didn't forget, right? So again, this is by design, right? Let's carry on. Angela, baby, you on a roll, baby. You on a roll. You are on a roll.
It was the church that the Negro spirituals or religious folk songs were born. So the church was the most important aspect of the Negro's life. And because it meant so much to them, they developed a deep emotional attachment to that institution, which still lingers today in many of the descendants of those people who make up the most religious group in America, right? These are the roots as to why the Black Americans are the most religious, right? It's not because they found some truth or anything like that. It's because the church was the institution that was necessary for the people to get through the slave experience that they had.
You hear that? Again, we found coping mechanisms, right? We found coping mechanisms. And things came out of that, which the high class people forgot because they trained them to forget as they do today. And they dropped the effing ball. Let's go.
Because it offered at least some level of hope, right? Let's continue. In these religious folk songs, the Negro attempted to find his meaning for his existence and at the same time, an escape from his tragic fate. You see that? It gave them some form of escape from the miserable condition that they found themselves in. It was a tool that they used for that time and place to serve that purpose. Let's continue. The folk tradition of the Negro, like the gentile tradition, has been dissipated or transformed as the result of migration and urbanization.
Urbanization. Remember, this is what now be. Remember, we now be finding out where the lower class come from, right? We got the higher class. We found out where they got the high class Black folks. And then we found out when did the middle class Black folks click in. Now we finding out when the lower class folks kicked in, right? So it don't matter if you're from New York, Chicago, we still carry that in our ways, right? And we are no different. We just travel. But the same behavior they brought with them. Unlike with the high class folks, they had to learn how to sing their songs, right? They was trained to sing that woo 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 ha 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 hee ha hoo 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 ha hee ha hee hoo. They was trained to sing like that, which they tried to train us to sing like that before. Remember when they said, "Hey, we Christians, let them come on to church," and we was there listening to them like, "What the hell is that?" Right? And then once we got outside, we started singing in our spiritual singing, right? Even though we're singing in English, what that hours from all the beatings and stuff, we had to create coping mechanisms, right? She said, I threw my hands up and it was I heard that before from some people, Angela. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh my goodness. I know, girl. Uh-huh.
During their wanderings,
But
the Negro
he out of that, you're going to see what we birthed. And this is where the high class people drop the ball. I tell you, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. I've been giving you hints and hints and hints and hints, but we're going to see what was birthed, right? So far, what is created out of that? The blues, right? We have started the blues. That's the first music that was created. We started during the wanderings. The Negro folks has created the blues, which tell of their disillusionments. We wasn't disillusioned, right? Well, let's go. I've got the blues. So now we have created one genre of music, right? They wanted us to hee ha ha ha. Nah, Ninja, we got the damn blues, and this is what we're gonna talk about. This is what we're gonna sing about, because this is what we been was doing. It didn't have a name, but now they're gonna call it the blues. Let's go.
folk have created the blues, which tell of their disillusion.
See? Now we have created a whole genre, right? This one they see we ain't nothing to F with, right? Now we got the blues, which not going to say the first, but this is the first that was recognized is the blues created from the church or I'm going to call it the slavery church or church of the slaves, because we always look like we praising anyway, but we're not. But let's go.
Illusionment and nostalgic yearning for the sympathy and understanding of the world of the folk which they have left. The secular folk song of these black troubadours in American industrial society are living records of the reaction of the uprooted black folk in the world of the city. In the countless storefront churches of northern cities, the Negro migrant has vainly attempted to cling to the traditional religious life of the rural South, right?
Thank you,
So
South.
some people just didn't want to give it up because
Thank
it's
you,
comfortable for humans to do the same things that they're used to doing. And the church life of the rural South, it created this type of comforting effect in the people who moved into the city. Let's continue. But more often, with the loss of his simple faith in the world of the city, he has sought salvation in various religious cults, some with nationalistic aims, which are indicative of his groping to find an escape from the white man's world. As the result of contacts with the public school.
So again, you will see how, just like today, nah, Ninja, we just left this. We want to get out of it. We left to get out of his world, and you trying to put us back in his world, right? And that alone played, I tell you, they dropped the ball in so many ways. Why I'm going to say they dropped the ball? Because they are supposed to be high class, right? You're supposed to be the most educated, high class, respectable, right? Who have, now you're trying to bring people that just technically just left out of slavery. We're all are free, right? They don't know what to do with themselves because this is technically a new world for them. And now you want me to go back to their world? I don't think so, right? That's what you will call the rebels, right? But they're really not rebels. But like, nah, Ninja, we sing like this. I don't want to sing like that because that is restricting me, right? You're putting me right back in the world I left. You want me to sing like these people in their churches when they just kicked us out of the church for singing like this? Like, I don't think so. See, that's like today. That's the disconnect. That is still the disconnect we have today, right? But it gets worse, right? It gets better. It gets better, but then the disconnect get worse. But it does get better. But the disconnect, I'm trying to show you where it starts at, right? For these people that we looked up to, like W.E.B. Du Bois, what they did was they tried to sucker us, right? Yeah, we praised them, but they tried to sucker us. Let's go.
The children of the folk have sloughed off the folk belief of their parents and learned the secular scientific techniques of survival in urban environment.
Now, I told you, we learned how to survive, right? So wherever we go, we're going to bring that survival mentality along with our coping mechanisms, things that got us just to the next day, right? Things that got us to the next day. Now, this is strike two. This would be strike two. That is correct. But one key we missing, I'm going to tell you. Now, this is strike two. Strike one, right? Now you high class, right? You so high class. Number one, but you're still a follower, right? You're really not free because you adapted back to your slave owners' ways, right? Now you want to become them. You're so educated that strike two, the middle class, as you guys called it, here comes the middle class. And you guys are complaining about the middle class. You guys said, hey, they weren't about money. Keyword, money. They didn't learn from the middle class. They don't want to participate in our music, our art, and reading books. They still did not catch on. They didn't catch on. They want to worry about money, spending their money, and looking good. While you guys are still worrying about respect, right? We want to be respectable. I want them to see me as a good girl. Hey, Miss Such and Such. Well, howdy, Miss Such and Such. Beautiful day today. Why, thank you, ma'am. You just have such a beautiful day. They're missing the mark. They're missing the mark, right? So this is one of the strikes, right? They high class, right? They divide with their higher education, but not just the fact that it's the higher education, right? It's the way they act. Because you can have education and be a beautiful person, but the way they said, oh no, we're not like them. Let's separate, right? Let's separate. We are not like them. So then the universe gave them another chance. And the universe brought in what they will call the middle class. High class still ain't catch on. So now we what they will call the lower class. Now everybody free. We with the lower class, and these nigglets still ain't catch on. I caught on, they didn't catch on, right? But y'all want to see what I'm talking about. You're gonna see right now.
Thus, instead of their old resignation towards the world, the Negro masses are acquiring a confidence in the efficacy of their effort through the use of the ballot and in joining with fellows through the use of unions. So that was some of the background on the two different traditional Negro cultures that developed here in America. They developed under completely different circumstances, right? And they served different purposes. Understand? So at this point, coming into the story, the Negro masses, they've moved from the South, the rural South, and they've moved into the cities, a lot of them, where their culture and their mindset interacted with this newly discovered environment. And so they begin going to college, getting educated, making more money, and climbing up the economic ladder. And with this new dynamic, this is where things get interesting, right? And so let's go.
This is where they fuck up. This is where they, pardon my French YouTube, but this is where they fuck up. Right here, right now, they're going to fuck up. But let's go.
Going here to page 125, where it says this. As the black bourgeoisie has grown in size and influence, Durham has ceased to enjoy the distinction of being its capital. Durham, North Carolina was known as the first capital of the black bourgeoisie. The Negro communities in Chicago and Detroit have both claimed to become the center of the black bourgeoisie. In either case, the shift of the capital of the black bourgeoisie from a small southern city to a northern metropolis is indicative of the change in the character and outlook of this class. Although the younger generation of Negro businessmen in Durham had acquired more thoroughly than the pioneers the psychology of modern business, they were still influenced by the older traditions that had grown up in the Negro community. And the older traditions are referring to the morals and the values that were inherited from that aristocracy class, right? The one with the free mulattoes. This was the class of Negroes that developed their culture under the circumstance of being free, right? They were the first class of Negroes that we discussed. Let's continue. They still conformed to the tradition of the gentleman, which lingered and shaped their morals and manners. They still felt some identification with the Negro masses, despite the fact that their interest might be opposed to those of the masses. This was due partly to the fact that they, as well as the Negro masses, lived under a system of rigid racial segregation. And this small group was forced to remain separate from the rest of the whites, and they were forced to live amongst the Negro masses. Here we go.
Ooh.
Moreover, they were more closely identified with the institution in the Negro communities, which were supported by the masses. On the other hand, the black bourgeoisie, which has become important in recent years, remember this is in the 1950s, has tended to break completely with the traditions of the Negro. And this black bourgeoisie is the blacks that came from the Negro masses, the ones who were the carriers of the slave mindset and the culture, right? Remember, they began getting educated and making money. And this mass element of people, they became the new black bourgeoisie, which broke away from the traditions of the old black bourgeoisie. Let's continue. As the system of rigid racial segregation has broken down, the black bourgeoisie has lost much of its feeling of racial solidarity with the Negro masses. In the metropolitan areas of the North, where there are increasing opportunities for employment and earning money, social mobility, which means primarily the attainment of middle-class status, has become a question of the amount of money which one has to spend.
I'm going to show you a way to potentially make money by pairing Amazon with the power of AI without...
Right? Not how thrifty or how much money a person could save, but how much money a person could spend. This was the mindset of this new black bourgeoisie, right? The ones who came with that slave mindset. Let's continue. When a French sociologist on a study tour in the United States saw the emergence of the black bourgeoisie in northern cities, he observed that they were really colored Babbitts. And Babbitts means a materialistic professional or a materialistic business person, a person who spends without thinking, right? That's how the French sociologist described this new black bourgeoisie. Let's keep going. The break with traditional values is seen in the changes in the canons of respectability. Among the older upper class families in the Negro community who really stood for a middle class way of life, the canons of respectability required a stable family and conventional sex behavior. So to gain respect amongst the old Negro class that had money, the ones who stemmed from the pre-Negro tradition, a person was required to have a stable family and practice conventional sex behaviors, meaning with a spouse.
They was
right?
cheating.
Here we go.
They was
On the
creeping.
other hand, among the new black bourgeoisie, these values are regarded as old-fashioned virtues, and there is much confusion in thinking and behaving with reference to these values.
Oh my goodness. Oh my. You mean to tell me? Do you mean to tell me they was modern back then? They was modern. Soon as they got free from being slaves, they became moderate. The same thing they're trying to say about us today. I tell you, there's nothing new under the sun, right? But let's go on. We're gonna get to they dropped the ball. Being so bourgeoisie. No, not the economic ladder. They moved up on the social ladder, not the economic ladder, Angela. See, that's where I'm trying to get to, baby. That's where I'm getting to. Something they wasn't taught in them upper class schools, right? And that because they forgot what came from us. What came from us, right? But our enslavers watched us. As you see, they studied us, right? Remember, we already discovered the blues, right? We already discovered the blues, right? Now, that would start an economic ladder. Maybe not a social ladder, but that would start an economic ladder where they fucked up at, right? Well, let's carry on.
Values. Who is the new black bourgeoisie again? They are the descendants of those with the slave mentality, the ones that came from the shackles and the chains.
See?
And developed a culture coming out of the pit, right? See? The people who developed a way of life from the slave environment, right? They didn't believe in those traditional morals and values that the old Negro bourgeoisie had, right? They labeled those as old-fashioned, right? So if that was old-fashioned, then what was considered the new trend with this new black bourgeoisie? Let's see. Divorces and scandals in family and sex behavior did not affect one's social status. Rather, the notoriety which one acquires in such cases adds to one's prestige. You see that? A person having family issues and having sex with all type of people, this didn't present any problems, right? It didn't lower one's status. In fact, it raised it up. And remember that this book was published in 1957. And so this gives a very important key in understanding how the blacks ended up with the dominant value system that most of them have today, right? And it's a key to understanding your way while you're wandering on the path and trying to find your way, right? Let's continue. The change in attitudes towards the old-fashioned bourgeoisie values is due largely to the fact that the new bourgeoisie is recruited from those elements in the Negro population among whom these virtues never existed.
Did you hear? Thank you. Somebody sit up there and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. When I tell you that them values never existed, God damn it, I tell you they never existed. With the upper class, they existed because they were following their Caucasian side, or they was, remember, it went by if you was a mulatto or if you wanted to conform. But all this shit they trying to tell us, you see, he wrote it in red. It never existed. All this bullshit that they talk about the trad wife, that never existed with us. Never. Among whom these virtues never existed. And that money has become the chief requirement for social acceptance. Now, the lower class has now outdid them. I'm going to finish getting to my point. But every time I do a video, I keep telling you, I'm glad he said that. I didn't even watch all of this. I didn't watch all of this. We happen to be saying the same exact thing. Throughout all my studies, it never existed. And he made sure he wrote it big, bold, and in red. It never existed. Not to say people did not get married. People did get married. You know, they tried to have a happy home, but all that bullshit about this is how no, that shit never existed. This traditional stuff. Everybody was trying to make some money. We ain't had none. Everybody was doing what they want to do because they were free. You cannot tell newly people that are free, hey, let's become old-fashioned. Bullshit. Let's go. We are new fashion. We don't want that fashion. We seen it. We seen how they treat their women. It don't work. We don't want it. It never existed.
And that money has become the chief requirement for social acceptance. You see that? These values and morals were never learned in the slave environment and developed in the slave culture. It's not like humans naturally understand that they should have conventional sex standards, right? Humans, when they're left to their own devices, they naturally want to do just like other animals do. And that's mate with minimal restrictions. Understand, conventional sex behavior, that's a cultural approach that's designed to tame the animal instinct within the human, right? And it's something that has to be taught, conditioned, and also upheld through expectations of the people and of the community.
That has to be taught.
And so this was not the culture of the slaves. And so when they were set free, their offspring came.
And it wasn't taught with the slaves because they kept moving you from plantation to plantation. We were getting baked. It wasn't too much of a family value when we got here. It wasn't after we were conditioned not to have when we first got here on the boat, right? We did not come here as family. We came here as people. We did not come here as family. You had some may have had a wife with them and maybe had a child, but they were separated. They were separated. You were a boy. You wasn't a man. You were a boy. You was treated as such. You wasn't taught to be a man. And that is one of the problems we still have today. You're not taught to be a man, right? You wasn't taught. But you want to now condition the black women. We were not taught neither. But we got these high class people who dropped the fucking ball, which I'm going to tell you how they effed up everything. These high class, I want to separate and talk about you all day. But at the end of the day, just like today, the lower class is winning and they mad. And they mad. And you know what? They should be mad at themselves. Let's go.
Into the rest of the society with a particular set of values that shaped the way that they interacted with the new environment that they found themselves in. And so as certain members from this group began to earn more money, they began to reinforce their inherited values on the rest of the black community. Now watch this. Among the professional classes in the Negro community, actors and entertainers are relatively numerous and have the largest incomes. Here we go. The actors and entertainers, who very often have a lower class background in the social hierarchy of the Negro community, exercise a far greater influence upon the morals and manners in the Negro community than actors and entertainers in the white community. And so these actors and entertainers were from the lowest class of the Negroes, or they were blacks that were the furthest down in the pit. And in terms of today, they would be equivalent to the blacks that are coming from the inner city projects, right? The ones who become rappers, athletes, and entertainers. And they have much more influence on that community than what those types of people have in a community like the white community or the Indian American community or the Vietnamese American community or the Chinese American community. And they typically bring a set of values with them that keep that community going round and round in this never ending cycle.
Now, what happened is, the point of this is, we had so much in us, we don't take value in each other, right? We do not take value in each other, and they forgot we knew how to sing. Remember, they said they was interested in money, right? What the high class people did not take, they forgot America is a capitalist place, right? It's a capitalist. Am I saying what y'all know, right? I got to fix the word, fix the word. This is a capitalist country. Y'all didn't capitalize off your own people, right? While you sitting there talking about us, they knew our talents. They sing the spirit in us. They know we can sing. They know we are athletic, right? They know these things, which you should have known, Miss High Class people, right? So y'all dropped the ball because you guys should have been the first one who started businesses, right? You were supposed to be the ones having the record companies, right? That your own people had so much talent, which you knew, but you rather separate yourself as they doing today, instead of loving them and educating them and figuring how can we capitalize off each other. You want it to be quote unquote respectable. So just like you see these women today and these men today, they are winning because you know what the oppressor done? The oppressor said, hey, you got talent, which we already knew that, you know? Well, come on to my company and sing for us, dance for us, run our track, right? Because they knew this thing called entertainment. They knew if nobody else can entertain, we could entertain because they watched us. I couldn't say the word before. I called it a coping mechanism, but they saw how we entertained ourselves to cope. So while they did not teach you how to create businesses in entertainment, right? They taught you how to read their literature, their music. Why? If you know we spiritual people and we sing with every single part of us, why you, as in, like just like today, you wanted to take that from them, and because they didn't want to conform to opera and shit, that you let these people make trillions of dollars off of us, even to today. Even to today, you let them people make trillions of dollars because you wanted to be respectable instead of loving on your people. They just came out of slavery. You didn't love them. You didn't teach them. You didn't even welcome them. So maybe if you have done that back then, it wouldn't have got to this, right? Remember, they already over-sexualized us. What did you think they was going to do to the women? Right? What did you think? You know they was going to over-sexualize them. They did it already. This is what they've been doing to the black female. This is what they've been doing to the black male. At this point, it's not a man against a woman thing. I'm talking about the classes, the high class, middle class, and lower class. They knew when they had set them, when we all got free, we were free to be us, right? They know we are creators. They watched us create stuff in our darkest days, right? They watched us. After you don't work 15, 20 hours in that on that slave, on that in them whatever you call them daggone things, and where we worked at, damn it. In them slave fields. After we done got whipped, we done got beat. They done dogged us out. They saw how we were still able to create. And they know creativity. Plantations, goddamn, I love y'all. I love y'all, right? They knew that we were going to be able to create. So you guys rather disconnect, which they still do today. And then you try to figure out why we cannot get better as a people because it started then, right? They disowned, as they will call, the lower class then. But our oppressor said, I want y'all had all the education as you, but they forgot to teach you that, right? You wanted us to read about others' people creativity. You didn't want to put the money into your own people creativity. You didn't want to love them and teach them how to speak correctly. They may not, you didn't want to teach them their traditions, right? All you had to do was let them in and love on your own people. But being that you could not love on your own people, this is where we at today. So of course you want to talk about the Sexy Reds and all of them. Now, maybe her grandmama, her great grandmama, you separated from them. You wanted to be respectable. So now, yeah, you got the education, but you work for people. And a lot of you guys now work for them, right? A lot of you guys are their lawyers, right? Now they're giving you jobs. I don't need the education. I need to be educated. I don't need to be the high class educated. I just need, just like the middle class, I need just enough. And I'm going to hire you to do the work. You want to be the doctor? I'm going to hire you to be my doctor. So the same people that they separated from, they don't want to be bothered with. You call, as we want to call them 304, you can call them 304s all you want. Sexy Red got people who work for her, right? She pay you guys. Y'all don't, oh, look where we got to. Because our people dropped the damn ball. They didn't think about they forgot we a capitalist. America's a capitalist country. Y'all didn't think about the money. Y'all just wanted status, right? Y'all just wanted to walk amongst them. Okay, now you don't fucked up on $1 trillion business, Mr. and Mr. High Class. People want to know where we fucked up at. That's where we fucked up at. We shall not speak to them. And they are this, they are that. White man says, shit, I'll take them. I know what you're capable of. And when they was in school, right? No, we don't want you singing like that. White man says, shit, go on and sing like that. Go on and sing like that. We want the Mahalia Jacksons back then, or whoever else goes with Mahalia Jackson. We want the Etta James. We want y'all to create the rhythm, the blues. All that had to be created. The high class people could not create that because they gave away their heritage, right? they gave away their heritage. So they could not create that. They could not create. Remember, blues was already created, right? So the blues was there, so it should be B-R, but R and B sound better. Then they had to create the rhythm, then the dance, right? Then the country music, then the rock and roll, then the basketball, then the football, and the track, right? Even the dressing style, like we didn't want to dress like y'all. And they didn't think about fashion, right? Remember, they didn't say, hey, if you saw them wearing different clothes, that was a market to make money, right? So you be a fashion designer. You saw them wearing makeup. Okay, let's get into makeup. No, you wanted to disassociate yourself with us. That's what you wanted to do. And now you mad at where we are at today, and you guys are still complaining where all of you guys went through all of that to work for them. Them same people you pushed out, we don't like the rappers. A lot of y'all work for them goddamn rappers, don't you? A lot of y'all got good jobs because of them rappers, huh? Accountants got jobs and rappers stay in trouble. They always need lawyers. They need doctors. They need people who know how to do their taxes. Remember, they building these big old houses, and y'all high class people very mad. Y'all mad. Y'all ain't make $1 billion yet. Y'all ain't bringing home Jay-Z and Beyonce money. Absolutely not. They done tricked you. They tricked you, and you're mad. That's why you talk about these artists all day when you had a chance to learn them. You can't teach them now. You can't teach them now. Just like on the slave plantations, right? They've been ruined, but they're making money, but they've been ruined. They're still being sexualized, prostituted. No morals. You didn't teach them. You had them right there. You had your own colleges. When the middle class people came in and you saw their demeanor, you were supposed to grab the middle class people and love on them. And when you speak to them in perfect English, right? Don't get mad because they don't speak it. You speak to them in perfect English. They will catch on, right? They will catch on. Just like if you're a doctor and you spoke to a child only in doctor language, right? They will know what you're saying. They will know exactly. If you spoke to them and you have a hematoma on your head, son, they will know exactly what a hematoma is, right? They would know these things. But now you want to sit around and talk about these people all day. Technically, they went back to the plantation, but guess who's working for them? You. You are now working for them. When you thought they was going to be nobody, they didn't have no class, no nothing. But you forgot what we had in us. You forgot we were some creative people. You forgot. And this is where we at today. This is the same problem we have today. You got the mammies. Oh, they got the wigs. They got this. Y'all still, these want to be high class. I'm educated. So, well, look at them. Their bank account is beautiful. I ain't going to sell my soul. No, y'all the one sold y'all soul first. You sold your soul. You the one try to get them them newer slaves to forget what happened to them. You the one wanted to learn the Puritans' way. That was you, high class people. That were you, smart people. Just like today, when you be in a ghetto or something, right? And you see that one smart kid, and everybody rallies behind that smart kid, and they make sure nothing, if they could, they make sure nothing happens to that kid, because they want that kid to go get an education and go to college. And guess what happens? The child never comes back. The child never comes and give back, right? They never come and give back and pull nobody up. The ghetto pushed you forward, and now you turn your back on them, and now you're better than them. Now they are beneath you until they write that hit record. So now what becomes out of that is we're longing for information, right? We long to be around smart people. So guess what happens in between that? Guess what happens? What happened is now you have the men who went to jail, right? And now they come out of jail, but while they was in jail, they had nothing to do but to read. But they're still criminals. But they don't want to go back to jail. So that's where the intellectual hustle started, right? Because you guys left us. So now these guys from jail come home with knowledge. This is where you get these cults from, because y'all left us again. You left us again. So being that you decided to leave us again, you left the door open for scam artists. Now we getting scammed. You left the door open. So when you see something like a Polite, a Nature Boy, or things like that, the high class people don't know, but y'all created them, because y'all not giving them. They're learning things, or they're telling them things that's intriguing their mind, because we are not stupid. We are not stupid people. So you're telling them they're learning stuff that's stimulating their mind, but they don't know they're being scammed, and all that polygamy and eat this way, eat that way. And they're like, wow. But 125 years ago, the black man had it right in the palm of their hands, right? But you sold your soul, and you worrying about these young people selling their soul, but y'all sold y'all soul first. That's why we keep getting scammed all the time. People hear somebody that got a little bit of knowledge, you flock to them. You flock. Because we were never dumb. You just didn't realize that. Our forefathers were not dumb. They wasn't stupid. They didn't want to live that life, but you never paid it back. You never paid it back. Yeah, they had a Southern mentality. You didn't take time with them. So here we go with the scams. Here we go with I'm not saying 5%ers are a scam. I'm just using it as an example. Now here comes the 5%ers. Here comes the Muslims, right? Here comes all of these different people coming in here talking about the knowledge. And you got the audacity to say These entertainers sold their soul, but no, it was you high class people. You didn't even know how to market your own people. You had first dibs on your people before the white man got to them. You have first dibs, but you didn't want them. You have first dibs. You know how they could sing. You didn't want it. You didn't want that.
Right? And having people wondering what's wrong with those people. Right? And they're also funded by many of the white folks. And both of them together, right? They eat lunch off of that community and suck the energy all out of that community, suck it dry, right? And they're the ones that are highly influential to the youth, right? Just as they were in the 1950s when this book was written. Let's continue. Their prestige is owing partly to the glamour of their personalities, but more especially to their financial success, which is due to their support by the white world. That's what we just talked about right here. They're funding it, and both of them together are eating off of that community, right? And it keeps that community because it keeps projecting those type of values, those type of morals in that community, and those type of deeds and actions in that community, and it keeps them suppressed while groups of them keep eating and coming up, right? And they're working together collectively, eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner off of that community, and that community stays down because they don't have the right values, morals, and the right culture to climb out of it, right? But they're working in their hand in hand. Let's continue. The black bourgeoisie is also being recruited from the successful underworld Negroes who have gained their money from gambling, prostitution, bootlegging, and the numbers, right? It's coming from all the people whose home resides down in the underworld, right? Today, you can add the drug dealers to that list as well. Let's continue. The old upper class in the Negro community erected an impenetrable barrier between themselves and Negroes who represented the sporting and criminal world. And why did they do that? So their offspring wouldn't be infected with those types of values and they wouldn't be influenced by those types of people. That's why separation is a very powerful tool when it's used for the right reason, right? It's a foolish thing to think that you can unite all people in all areas of life. It just doesn't work that way. Sometimes the best thing to do is just to separate from people, just like this older upper class of blacks did. Let's continue. Since such Negroes were generally able to handle more money than the majority of Negroes, with the emergence of the new black bourgeoisie, the standards of consumption, which the sporting and criminal elements are able to maintain, have become the measure of success among the black middle class. The standards which they set are emulated by Negroes in the professional classes, doctors, dentists, and lawyers, and even teachers as far as they are able to do so. But more important still, in order to secure the money necessary to maintain these standards, Negro professional men engage in the same rackets as the successful Negroes in the underworld. Consequently, among the black bourgeoisie, an expensive automobile, a palatial residence, and a yacht bring more recognition to a doctor than some achievements in medicine. And is that still true today in that community? And will it still be true in the next 70 years? Think about it. At the summer resort where the black bourgeoisie gather to display their wealth, the descendants of the old respectable families must defer to the underworld elements who, through their money, have risen to the top of Negro society.
You see that? What is last shall be first. What is first shall be last. So now, when they walk into a door, it's hello, how are you? When the entertainer walks to the door, Beyonce! Right? So they dropped the ball. Now they mad. They are really mad. They're really mad. Right? So, again, they must defer, you hear this, to the underworld elements. through their money has risen. They has risen to the top of the Negro society because we are in a capitalist system, right? You being a lawyer, doctor, you working for them, right? You working for them does not help their economy, right? Doesn't help their economy. They're about the economy. You didn't see that, hey, we can do something here. No, right? Your salary may be good, but shit, I'm gonna rob the remember them people that you didn't like. We're gonna rob the shit out of them, and we're gonna become $1 trillion business. We're gonna take all their music because you didn't teach them, right? You had the chance to teach them. You didn't teach them, right? You didn't teach them about money. You didn't show them. You didn't come to them with love and say, hey, if you sing, let me be your manager, right? They didn't want to be there. They didn't see no profit in the descendants, the latest descendants from slavery. But the slave master did. So now they done beyond past you. Right? They passed you, right? Because they done brought in a lot of money, even though they don't have it. But you couldn't bring in all that money for them the way all the different types of entertainment, the sports world, the music world, the fashion world. That's even down to cooking, right? That's even down to cooking. Y'all didn't put a stake in nothing. You was laughing at them and telling them not to sing the way they sing. That's $1 trillion business. You try to take that from them. You could have had part of that, right? Don't act the way you act. That's part of that $1 trillion business, right? That's part of the $1 trillion business. Black folks, I tell you, it's about economics. So you high class for what? Right? You did all that for what? Now you want to be their friend now, right? You want to be their friend now, right? Hey, Mr. Jay-Z, how are you? Hey, 50 Cent. 50 Cent having meetings with the people you cannot have meetings with. My. Mm-hmm. 50 Cent having a meetings now. Yep. They're having festivals and shit. Estes festivals. The original BET. Mm-hmm. We got little Michael Jackson. We got Prince. We got some people out of there. They know Warren Buffett and the rest of them people. They got invited to the all-white affair. You did not. Mr. I want to stay respectable. You want to be respectable. I don't stay respectable. So you sold your people down. You sold your people down. You sold them out. I keep telling you, whomever is last should be first. Whoever first shall be last. And now they are ahead of your ass, right? And now you want to do video after video after video after video. And these days, yeah.
That's who has risen to the top of the black community. The lower class underworld Negroes who brought certain values with them that they inherited from the pits of slavery, right? They took over the head of the black community, and it is they who have the largest influence within that community. So I want you to think about that. Having abandoned their social heritage and being rejected by the white world, the black bourgeoisie have an intense feeling of inferiority, constantly seeking various forms of recognition and place great value upon status symbols in order to compensate for their inferiority complex, right? Thinking that material possessions were going to gain them some recognition in the world, and that's just not the case, right? Material things, they're just material things. And that's how we need to look at them, right? They're just material things. And although material things do enhance our comfort in the physical world, obtaining them should never be placed in priority above the intangible possessions that come from within, right? Things like understanding, respect, peace, originality, integrity, sincerity, and empathy. Peace, originality, integrity, sincerity, and empathy.
Now, what happened is we didn't teach them. We didn't teach them. This is why we still got a chance for the youth, right? We still have a chance for the youth, right? We can still teach them respect, understanding, peace. They got the originality, integrity, yeah, sincerity, and empathy, right? But you disconnected, and the oppressor took them back in a different way, right? You wanted them to become the oppressor and be traditional and wear their clothes. Them wasn't our clothes. That was their clothes, right? You let these different people come from around the world and create fashion, but you were mad when your own people were dressing different. Why didn't you? You knew they knew how to sew. They've been sewing forever on them plantations. Y'all didn't set up anything. Anything. Y'all did not set up nothing. And now you want to now blame them. Right? I want to go back to their picture. I still got another video. I still got to get up like really early. I really do. I meant to start much earlier, but too many things I had to do today. Too many things I have to do tomorrow. But I wanted to finish that other one because, again, I showed you where the disconnect came in at. I showed you where I told you that traditional shit never existed. It never existed for us as a whole. As a whole, it never existed, right? Now, these would not be the uppity people. These would be the lower class people, right? See, the dress is different. See, if you look at the difference, look at the difference in the clothes, right? Let me just show y'all real quick, right? This would be the high class people. This is not how we dress. We didn't dress like this. This is not us. This would be our oppressors. This is how our oppressors dressed, right? This would be how our oppressors dressed. All right. Hold up. Now, these people started to change. And this would be how we dressed. Right? I don't know what I did with it. Hold up. Let me find that spot again. That sweet spot. Where'd that picture go? Now, today, we may say, hey, they dressed real good. Right? Again. God dang it. Why are you messing up on me now? This is how our oppressors. This is not how we dressed. We dressed the lower class people. God damn it. When I get to it, I'm going to get to it. I lost it, but it's coming. I'm going to find it. Don't worry, I'll find it. Maybe I won't find it. I should have looked at the timing. Right? This is how technically we were dressing. Right? This is how we were dressing. There we go. There we go. This is how the lower class folks dressed. They didn't capitalize on this neither, right? That's how we dressed. Big difference. That's how we dressed. Again, this is how we dressed. They didn't capitalize on it. But again, today was a learning day of the disconnect then and now. So when we want to say, well, what are we going to do as a people? They started that shit already, right? They started it already. Yes, they did. They started it. So we're going to end this show. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate all of you guys. Yeah. Yes, I did. I may come on again. No, I'm not. Because I gotta rest up. And then I got something in the morning. But don't worry. I'll be back. Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
The land of real. There's a love that's true. Sugar love is her name, spreading sweetness too. Her voice like velvet, smooth as a summer breeze. A podcast, the soundtrack to everybody's ears. Sugar love, she's the queen of soul. Ooh, yeah. The podcast, the place where the stories unfold. Ooh, yeah. News and entertainment with a touch so sweet. She's the heartbeat of the community's beat. She brings the news with flavor like a cup of hot tea. Uncovering stories, bringing light to what we see. With her infectious laughter, she uplifts every soul. Sugar love, she's the one who makes us feel whole. She's the one who makes us feel whole. In the land of real, there's a love that's true. Sugar love is her name, spreading sweetness too. Her voice like velvet